Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. The sound looks better on this. So, Magical Wolf asks the question, what if I'm not able to experience any sensations at the top of my head in the Vipassana Goenka retreats or in the Goenka Vipassana retreats? The instruction is always to start at the top of your head and then scan from there. But what if you don't feel sensations there? So first, let me just give the practical, and then we'll chat a little bit more about that. So the practical advice is it doesn't matter where you start. So you can start or you can start at the bottom, like at the tips of your toes, and scan upwards from there. Um, if you aren't familiar with this, try googling homunculus. Let me see if I can homunculus. Um, it's basically an image of a person that's distorted according to where they have the most neurological sensitivity or the most most sensitivity. And so you'll see there that the hands are really large in that picture. So we have a lot of sensation in our hands, and we're used to feeling things in our hands. So the hands is a great place to start. You can start by just bringing your attention to your hands, noticing any sensations you feel in there, and then moving from there. The head and feet are logically like easy because when you start from your head or from your feet, it's less likely that you're going to forget a part of your body to scan. And so those make it easy. But as long as you come up with a system for yourself, like let's say you want to start with your hands, maybe you start with your hands, you go up from your hands and then your head, and then you work back down through your torso and down to your legs. Maybe that becomes your system. Whatever system you come up with, just have a system that makes sure that you hit all the spots in your body. And the reason for that, uh, in ge- the an analogy I like to use is because I'm a computer scientist, is like a hard drive. You can have a hard drive full of information, like chock full of videos and pictures and whatnot, um, and there's these couple of sectors on the hard drive that actually store like the table of contents that say this is where this information is stored. And if you lose those, it doesn't matter that you have all the information stored. It might as well be garbage because you don't know where to look and where one file begins and another ends. Our body, it's as if we're relearning that table of contents. So we have the ability to feel into every single part of our body. And if you have ever been pricked by a pin, you know that pretty much anywhere on your body, if you get pricked by a pin, you're going to feel it, right? I just got my flu shot and my COVID booster recently. So you know, like even a tiny pinprick in some place where you may not normally feel like you can feel sensations, you can feel that pinprick. Um, so the question is not about so much about our sensitivity, but about our ability to know on demand to be able to feel into certain parts of our body. Um, our body, our neurology, for good reason, is like this giant filtering machine. It's not useful on on a day-to-day basis for us to feel into our left pinky toe at all times, right? There's not really useful information in that. And so what our body does is it does like this filtering system where it says, okay, unless I'm in pain or unless there is, unless there's like a really high amplitude signal in one place, or unless there are a bunch of medium amplitude signals all in a similar place, and you can imagine those two like a pinprick or like getting knocked with a hammer on your pinky, like unless there's a signal like that, basically filter it out. I'm not interested in it. And what we're trying to do in Vipassana is almost like bypass those filters and say, okay, but right now I'm going to learn how to pay attention to the raw information or the raw inputs coming in from each part of my body. And in order to do that, we need to kind of do these two different skills. One, we need to relearn that table of contents. We need to relearn, okay, I know when a signal comes in that's important, I know how to feel that. I mean, that's something I already do. Like if I get jabbed with a pin or hammered on my toe with a hammer. But now what I need to learn is to do the opposite. I need to be able to intentionally bring my attention to a particular part of my body. And because we're not used to that, we kind of don't know what it feels like to feel into a particular part of our body on demand. So that's the first skill we're learning. And then the second skill we're learning is that we have this inbuilt filtering that filters out what we normally deem as useless information. And what we're trying to do is bypass all those filters and say, nope, right now I am deciding that I want to pay attention to a particular part of my body, and I want to bypass those filters and just pay attention to the raw signal. And so as we do that, as we learn that, it takes a while, and that's the reason we have when we practice vipassana, we have these blank spots or spots where we don't feel any sensation. Again, it doesn't mean we don't have the nerve endings there. It doesn't mean that the signals, the pathways are broken. It just means that we have gotten so used to tuning those out, and now we're learning this new skill of tuning them in on demand. And uh, so in order to do that, uh, one, I don't know that this is true, but it's possible that adjacent regions on the body have similarly geographically located or similar proximity in the brain in terms of how where we process those signals. And so I mention that because the process of sweeping, the process of going from here to here to here to here, is this process where you're like, okay, well, I can feel here maybe. And if I can feel here, then almost like the momentum or something about knowing how to feel this part of my body makes it a little easier to feel this part of my body, which makes it a little easier to feel this part of my body. So doing a systematic scan um, has a couple of benefits. One is that you're benefiting from this proximity. That as you're scanning your body in some sort of uh, order where you're going one part next to another part, you're kind of benefiting from that. The second is the other practical reason, which is that doing that, you are less likely to just forget one part altogether. So I know for a long time um, that there were parts of my body that I would just skip over, not because I was trying to skip over them or because I thought that I was afraid to look there, but it's like I had never done that, and so it took me a while. So, for example, for me, even now, like some parts of my torso, I feel like I naturally have a tendency to want to just skip over those. And so I have to try really hard to make sure that I spend some time there. And then there's kind of this loop where because I don't feel anything there, I sort of go in assuming that I'm not going to feel anything there and I skip over it. And so that's something I have to be a little conscientious of. So coming back to the original question, um, if you don't have uh, if you don't have sensation in one part of your body, what do you do? So if you don't have sensation in your head, what do you do? Especially because that's the place where Goenka says or suggests that you should start. So don't worry about that. Start with some place where you do feel sensation and move from there. So if you're already doing anapana, for example, where you're paying attention to your breath, maybe in your nostrils or in this area here, can you start from there and almost like use that to then sweep across the rest of your body like that? Or if even that feels difficult at a time, sometimes, like I said, our hands have a lot of sensory nerves and we're used to feeling sensations in our hands. Maybe start with your hands and then sweep from there and figure out a way where you can make sure that you don't leave anything unswept. Um, I see a little hello from infographics. Hi. Um, if you have a question, please feel free to leave it here or comment on the video. And then that way I can kind of answer specific questions in these bite-sized chunks. I'm noting the time. I'm almost at 10 minutes. I don't want these to be too long. Hopefully that's useful, Magical Wolf. If not, please feel free to ask follow-up questions. Thanks.